Thank you. It's always overwhelming to see that, and I don't feel any different than any one of you who just does what you do every day, and that's the honest to God truth. I love what I do, and that may sound very strange to many people, but I work in an area of medicine. I work in an area of medicine where I am privileged to be with women through one of the most important passages in their life. One of the few times when they actually can take control of what they're doing, when they're not doing something because somebody else tells them they have to or because they're forced to, but because they have made the choice within themselves. And there are many women that, yes, of course we feel sadness sometimes. Women are in a very tough situation, but most of the women who leave the clinic leave feeling stronger because they have made a choice about their lives. It's been a conscious choice on whether or not they're ready to be a parent at that time in their lives. So thank all of you for the many things that you do as well. We each have our role, and I don't want to ever assume that my role is any better or any different than anyone else's. We each do what is important to us. So thank all of you as well. And thanks to Deborah for getting me out here. And Sansara. I've known Deborah for a long time, and we traveled from different parts of the country to go to Dr. Tiller's funeral, and Deborah and Sansara and Lori and I sat in a hotel room. There we go. Is that better? Sat in a hotel room and talked about what next, and they came up with the idea of doing a tour around the country to try to get people to speak out and actually say the word abortion out loud. Abortion! God! Oh. It is not something shameful or bad, nothing we should feel guilty about. And how would that look like? How would that look to do a tour? I have just started a new clinic in Livingston, Montana. It's been open 6 months, and it's a wonderful clinic, and I just can't take a chunk of time to travel around the country and do the speaking that I would like to do. I don't have the financial resources, and I don't have another person to take care of the clinic while I'm gone. I've done a fair amount of speaking, and yes, I have used my voice a lot to talk about abortion rights, to talk about what I do, to talk about who the women are, and of course it's everyone. Any woman of childbearing age that's sexually active has a chance of being or finding herself with an unintended pregnancy. So there is no stereotype. It doesn't matter what age they are, what race they are, what socioeconomic background. It affects every woman. It can affect any woman in this country. So the first question that I want to answer for you is why. First of all, let's start with the beginning. Why did I start providing abortions? And for those of you who may have read my book, This Common Secret, the answers are in there, at least part of the answers. And it has to do with my own history. And I think any one of us moves forward in life based on what our own history is and what's happened to us. And I had a horrendous abortion when I was in my early 20s by a physician who didn't explain anything to me and told me to basically shut up and lie still. No one cared. No one was compassionate. No one talked to me. No one said, if it hurts, let us know and we'll stop and fix it. And I got scared. I was very young, had not started college yet. This was in the, I'd been living in San Francisco and was having a high old time. Anyway, I ended up, they told me to shut up and lie still and literally held me down while they did the abortion, and I found myself then injected with something that put me out and woke up. When I woke up, I was naked on a Naugahyde couch in a locked room. A horrendous experience. I have never regretted that I made that choice. Never regretted having had that abortion. I am very sad I ended up in the facility that I did. And as my life moved forward, I eventually had a child, was married for a short time, and when at the age of 26, was living in a tent in a goat pasture in northern Wisconsin. Literally, I'm not kidding you. We fenced the cattle, or the goats, and the pigs, and the ducks and chickens out, and fenced the people in on a 40-acre lot of land. and I decided I wanted to be a doctor. And my family was, rural Wisconsin, poor family, and it was I didn't even dare tell them when I first started college that I wanted to be a doctor, because how dare I have the audacity to think I could be a physician. But I made it through undergrad and med school as a single mom, and then was determined to learn to do abortions, because I wanted to do that as part of the care of my own patients, and I wanted to do it with dignity and with respect and carefully and do it the right way. And ended up going to a program where I learned how to provide abortions, went back to my hometown in northern Wisconsin to provide them along with the rest of my care, and was promptly told by the doctor, or by the hospital board rather, where I was going to be practicing, that I could not. They forbid me from doing abortions. There's a lot more to that story that's in the book, and I'm not going to go through all of it. But the bottom line is I ended up going with my mother. I had a wonderful mother who was a feminist before we knew the word, in our community at least. And she encouraged me and to take my daughter to go to a march in DC in '89. And at that march, I was already providing abortions to my own patients, even though the hospital board didn't know it. Went to that march in '89. Yeah, having to work underground in 1989 was terrible, but I did it. And heard Molly Yard speak and say, there are those of you out there who have other skills you're not using. You need to do what you can do for the causes you believe most in. So I went back to the Midwest, called a few clinics to find out if they needed any help providing abortions, and was within the next year I was working in 5 clinics in 3 states. So I was flying every day. I was in an airplane flying to either Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota, Fargo, North Dakota, and then Minneapolis, St. Paul, and traveled constantly, but was not yet speaking, was not talking about it, and in fact didn't even tell my family, except for my mother and my daughter, of course, that I was providing abortions. And the Antis figured it out. This woman that was going in the clinic every week wasn't a patient going in every week for an abortion, but they had only had male doctors at some of these clinics, so I must be a new nurse that was working there or something else, or a new office person, and finally figured out that I was the physician. And the Lambs of God eventually made their way to our home in northern Minnesota and barricaded themselves around the house, cement barrels. Again, to tell you the whole story, it just goes on and on and on. It was unbelievable what they were doing to us as a family. And the day that they had put cement barrels in the yard and to try to keep me from going to the clinic, which is the same day that I snuck out of the house carrying a loaded .45, which is the same day I drove, all night long to get to the clinic in Fargo, and then that morning showed up at the clinic, and the protesters, of course, thought I was barricaded in my house because their buddies 260 miles away, of course, were holding me captive, and they were quite shocked when, for the first time ever, I stepped out of that clinic with my scrubs on and my lab coat, and I put my fist in the air, and I said, yes, there will be clinic today. You are not going to stop this clinic. And it was the day that I dug in my heels, and my daughter will say to people now, don't ever tell my mother she cannot do something, because it doesn't matter what it is, that is what she will promptly move forward to do.